The category is live, work, pose.
Alrighty, everybody, welcome. This is Goddess Kendra. Thank you for tuning in to another video. I do apologize for not making my videos back to back. I have been working so hard this week at work. I've been working, I think my hours are like over 100 hours already. I do apologize, It's very important to get rest because without rest, things can get ugly. So this is the season finale of Pose Season 1. The last episode is 8, entitled Mother of the Year. Bianca returns a favor to Elektra. Pray Tell pushes back into the dating scene. The house of Evangelista faces against the house of Ferocity. So this episode was kind of emotional. Little Poppy lied to the house mother, Bianca. And she asked him, Poppy, are you doing drugs? Are you selling drugs? He says no. And then Ricky ends up telling on him. And like I said in the last episode, they end up fighting. So she had talked to Damien's teacher and was like, what do you do when your children disobey you? What do you do? And she's like, you have to be strong and say what you mean and mean what you say, because your children will run all over you. So Elektra's man ends up putting her out after she has her reassignment surgery, meaning she turned her penis into a vagina. Now she's full woman. So she tried talking to some other guy, and now she's like, I'm full woman. And he had asked her, please don't do the surgery. So she did it anyways. It upsetted him. So he kicked her out and had a new transgender woman come in and pretend he didn't know her. He's like, I like the penis between your legs. That's what I like. Don't do it. So at this point, she had been with old daddy for like 10 years. He replaced her like that. So then finally, even how mean Elektra is, Bianca shows up and is like, I know it's been hard, but you got this. So Elektra ends up working at the peep show, and she ends up homeless because they're past doing rent. So Bianca's like, honey, you can't be sleeping on the streets. Come with me. And immediately Elektra's like, your apartment looks like shit. You need to repaint this. And she's like, well, this is all I can afford. And what you're not going to do is sit here and talk to my babies like that and be disrespectful. You're going to give up your room, Ricky and Damien, so that Elektra can sleep in here. And they were happy. But as obedient children, they listen. So then she lives with them. And then finally, Bianca's like, you know what, girl? You need to stop feeling sorry for yourself. Get up. You're going to apply for this job. You don't need to have nobody to depend on. You need to make your own money. So she ends up asking for an application and is doing well. And thanks, Bianca. She's like, are you here to just be like, oh, you're mean to me because A, B, and C? She's like, no, I really care. And she tells her, you have to be grateful when people help you. You can't sit up here and be real nasty to people. You can't sit up here and do like some really mean things to people. It's not cool. What you got to do is be grateful that people are willing to help you. So Bianca ends up seeing Lil Poppy on the streets. And because he doesn't want to be homeless, he ends up joining the house of Ferocity. So they have a face-off at the ball. Balls are where all the LGBT communities do like a fashion show, and the best house wins. So when that ends up happening, the other house was like, "You're trash, you're ugly, I don't care what you say." So then, honey child, Elektra starts putting them on blast and forces her other children to join the house of Evangelista, and they kick the butt of the other house. So Poppy's like, "Mama, okay, I'm sorry. We can come back. And are you due for one more?" So now I'm going to read I'm saying his name wrong. I'm sorry. I like to give credit to whoever just wrote this article. Hold on one second. Brian Mullane. Poe's final recap, Bells of the Ball. Poe's has always been a fairy tale, so no doubt that there would be a happy ending in the final episode of the first season. Yes, Esbury knew for season 2. Things start out low, of course, but you can't make it to the castle without sweeping up the cinders first. Our evil stepmother Elektra has been thrown out of her castle by the king, who only wanted her for her special power. It took unwanted Cinderella to rescue her. That extended fairy tale metaphor is already getting me down. Time to abandon it. Elektra, as we saw last episode, ended up on the streets after losing her longtime John and her apartment. I hate to make light of people's experience homelessness, but only Elektra could find the world's chicest outfit for sleeping on a park bench. Eventually, Bianca finds her at Peephole. How exactly, since no one she knows working there anymore? I don't know, but she did. Bianca takes her to confrontation, the dinner where all of our favorite characters go for tea chats with someone they have a problem with. As we always suspected, when Elektra got kicked out, she ended up at the house of Evangelista, taken in by her former child. Elektra hates herself for asking for help, but Bianca tells her that she gives it anyway. Still, these two are awful to each other. Bianca tells her at her confrontation, "You sure were an awful mother, but the one thing Elektra has to suffer for living in the house of Evangelista is Bianca lording her moral superiority over her at the time. That and living in a room with walls the color of shit-stained diapers left out in the rain." I always had no idea how Bianca knew about a job opening in doctrine, considered she's an uptown girl who works in a nail salon, though she never seemed to be given manicures and instead is trasping around Manhattan at all hours of the day. For those who don't know about Indochine, is always still around. They film on location and is still a downtown state. It's well known for the attractive and exotic looking employees, so Elektra could fit in right in as a hostess. As Bianca says, this is the only job that plays to her strengths, looking good and being mean. The whole scene was amazing, especially when Elektra shouted, "I can't work in the service industry," with her painted overtone. Elektra has a few standout moments in this episode. The other was her standing out of an I'll be sure at an Evangelista group dinner. She's not wrong, night and day. Is all-time jam. Damien and Ricky go to audition to be dancers for the Singers Tour and end up booking the job and also going on tour with him. Elektra freaks out about how I'll be sure is the number one panty dropper, But I think that distinction goes to Ricky's audition is in a crop top and a pair of sweatpants that were bulging in the right places. That he is Damien's boyfriend only makes me hate Damien even more. Why can't the kids quit whining? He throws a temper tantrum when Elektra kicks him out of the room, and he pouts when Bianca tells him that he shouldn't go on tour because he could stay in school and learn the craft. Before taking the first part-time gig that came his way, is this kid 8 or 18? I was sort of hoping that he would go on tour and not come back for a season or two, so I wouldn't have to look at his simmering face one more time. But no such luck. Bianca is not only helping Damien and Elektra, but she's also serving an analog on Match.com or maybe Adam 4, and sets Prey-Tail up with the super hunky bartender who works at all of the balls. Damn, does Bianca have superpowers or something? Maybe she's a fairy godmother of this tale rather than a Cinderella. These two share a nice date in the fancy restaurant where Prey-Tail discloses his HIV status, and the hot bartender tells him that it's cool, that they'll just have to be safe. All of the stories came to a head at the big princess ball for Angel. Stan shows up and tells her that he wants her back. He wants to get them a house in the suburbs and take care of her just like she said she wanted to be back in episode 1. They'll even get the children every other weekend. No thanks, Angel thinks. She tells Stan that she's changed. She has a family and now she doesn't need to pretend with him anymore. He can go back home to Patty, who was emancipating herself, and he can have that fantasy because it is no longer hers. Good for Angel. Most of the people at the Princess Ball don't have it easy, but tough. The House of Ferocity, headed by Candy and Lulu, shows up and makes fun of Bianca for being ugly and having stubble. Bianca may be good at some things, but she throws about so much shade as a matchstick in a thunderstorm. Elektra shows up and tells the House of Evangelista that she'll walk for them. Before that, she goes out and reads Candy and Lulu to filth so hard that all the queens watch the show at home and snap and wave their fingers at the same time, and it's created a breeze of toppled of the Statue of Liberty. Sorry, not sorry. Elektra also reunites Voger's Chubby and Lemar, and reunites Little Poppy with his former house. Elektra's best line of the night was when everyone was reunited and hugging, as she declared, "All right, I think we've had enough feelings." Of course, when they walk again, Ferocity, they win. Of course, Elektra snatches all of the trophies possible for the house. Of course, Bianca is nominated for Mother of the Year and wins. And of course, Damien decides to go back to school and not go on tour with Albie Shore. Of course, Prey-Tail gets with the hot bartender. Of course, they go for Chinese dinner and celebrate the ball. And of course, Damien's dance teacher, Helena, knows how to find them because she had nothing to do with them. She had nothing to do in the middle of the night other than eat Chinese food with one of her students and all of his friends who are like half her age. Of course. Because this, after all, is a fairy tale and needed to end up happily ever after moments. When they shouldn't this be the bit wish fulfillment? The lives of gay and trans people of color still aren't easy, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't get to see them enjoy life. It's not all struggle, and that's the point. Pose is at its best on a balance the tragedy of homelessness, AIDS, disenfranchisement, and finding friends and close ones. Acceptance and yes, the teeny tiny victor of winning a trophy. But that's what fairy tales are all about. Turning these tiny little victories into happily ever afters. So like I've always said, just because you don't agree with someone's lifestyle does not mean you have to sit here and be disrespectful. It does not mean you have to sit here and hurt people's feelings or discriminate. There's a whole lot of things that I don't agree with. A lot of my closest friends are from the LGBTQ community, and I've never judged them. I don't always agree with a lot of things, but to discriminate against someone or hate someone because of their sexuality, what they identify, or their race or traditions, to me, that's really not cool. And we live in a world where we should be able to live amongst each other. I mean, to me, as long as you're not touching children and being weird and doing things or being abusive, I'm like, live your best life. I don't care, because I don't live somebody's life. And it's just strange, the world that we live in now. A lot of adults support R. Kelly. He's done some terrible things to children. I've heard, and he's still in prison, I've allegedly heard Drake Bell from Drake and Josh is a pedo, touches children. But we could support these people. What really frustrates me is when we can say because of somebody's sexuality, that they're a pedo. Like, really? Even Bianca, going from Mateo to being Bianca, her brother tried to beat her up and call her a child molester. Really? Because he wants to be a she? That is so trash. And this season was very emotional. And like I told you, the reason why I wanted to watch Pose was to understand. I don't live that life. I don't understand. Coming from a religious family, I was taught being a certain way is a sin and God hates that. And I'm like, I don't hate nobody. I think that's BS. People can choose to be who they want to be, and to try to just dismiss somebody because of that. Or people may say, because you're not this religion, no. We should be able to live amongst each other and be different races, different genders, different religions, different everything, and be okay with, our sexuality and feel fine. Well, what's the big deal? People sit up here and are literally hateful. And even me, coming back to a lot of things people preach religiously, I've really understood over the years that they don't believe what they preach. God, higher power, whatever. We are not practicing what we preach, and it frustrates me because I say it is wrong to be hateful to someone because of certain things. I mean, when you point your finger, 4 or 3 point back at you, we're so quick to say something about somebody. We're so quick to be just disgusting to somebody, and then our backyards aren't clean. People who preach on the internet self-love and don't be preaching what they do. So I'm like, who am I to be judgmental in that way? I judge everybody by character. And I would say, personally, for me, I'm an introvert. If I don't like your energy, I ain't trying to talk to you. It doesn't matter, sexuality, religion, whatever. If I ain't feeling your energy, stay away from me. Point blank and period. So I give Pose 5 stars, and tomorrow I will do a review on season 2, episode 1. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and also please listen to my podcast on Anchor. I posted it in the community section of YouTube. Thank you so much.